Good evening and welcome to tonight's meeting of Burnside Special Council meeting of the 24th of June 2024. Please stand if you are able for the acknowledgements. Councillor Jones?
I'm sitting.
Okay. We acknowledge the land we meet on today is the traditional land of the Kaurna people and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the custodians of the Adelaide region and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still important to the Kaurna people today. On behalf of the City of Burnside, I gratefully acknowledge and pay respect to those who have sacrificed their lives for this country and its people. We also consider in our thoughts all those who today are being affected by war, especially those in the Middle East and Ukraine. We seek guidance in our debate as we make decisions that will impact on the lives of all who reside, study, work in or visit the City of Burnside. Grant us wisdom as we serve our community. Please be seated. Tonight is a very difficult decision, I know, for everybody involved, and I just would like to remind everybody about making sure that what you have to say is about the information that's presented to you and not personal attacks on anybody during the evening. I have received no apologies and I'm not going through any of the other opening statements tonight. Declaration of interest, I don't think there's anyone who's going to have one tonight. Councillor Turnbull, you have your hand up about something?
I would like to move a motion straight away, please. I'd like to... Excuse me,
since I'm the presiding member, I would like to actually...
Right, well, I'll leave it on so you know.
Okay. I would like the opportunity for the CEO to present the information that he has put together tonight, and I would also, during that, as part of that, I would like to move that we have up to 45 minutes of informal discussion before we move any motions. That allows the CEO to present the information that's been provided, allows anyone to ask questions, clarifications, considerations that they would like to consider before we move into a formal mode and present motions to the table. So I do seek someone to second that. Councillor Dawes, you're seconding it?
I'll second that.
All right. Well, it's just a motion. I don't even need a motion. It's just a suggestion that we move into informal mode, but I'm just trying to do it the formal way. So it does meet with everybody's agreement.
I'd like that to be a motion.
All right, that's fine. Well, I will move that we move into informal mode for up to 45 minutes. I'm going a little over what I think it would be, but better to have that extra up our sleeve rather than having to do it again. Up to 45 minutes so that the CEO can present the information he wishes to present to us tonight, and people can ask questions of the CEO, and if anyone has questions as a result of that presentation, and any questions that they have prior to us moving back into formal mode, and then presenting the motions that wish to come to the table. And it's been seconded by Councillor Dawes. All those in favour? Those against? Motion's carried. Right. I'm going to hand over to the CEO now.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I might just get how I can bring up my PowerPoint presentation. On your desk, you'll notice that I've put a printout of a PowerPoint presentation. So what I'd like to do is just take a few moments to recap a little bit of the history about how we've arrived at this evening, talk through the survey that went out and the results, and then also talk about the recommendation that I've made for your consideration. So, just looking back in history, Council adopted a draft budget of 14% to go out to community consultation. There was two options as part of that put forward. One was a 9.8% model, the other was a 14% model. Decision was made by a casting vote to go to 14, and both models provided a path to sustainability. One was a one-year model and the 9.8 was a 3-year model. Just go back one slide. Thank you. When we went out to consultation, the results of the consultation were interesting. I've rounded these for ease of consideration, but essentially 1/3 of the people that responded supported a 14% model. 1/3 of people responded supported a 9.8% model. There was another third of our community who made various suggestions generally below 9.8. But there was also 2 key themes that came through from the community loud and clear to my mind. And one was that they were seeking for the council to review its service provision and also looking at the intervention timelines in terms of its asset renewal program as to whether there could be potential savings made there. Having considered that feedback, Council, at its last council meeting, considered the draft budget formally. And I'll just summarise the 4 motions that came before this chamber. The first was the 14% model, and that was ultimately lost. The second was an 8.95% model, and that was ultimately lost. The third was a 9.8% model, which had various items removed. That was ultimately lost. And then the last motion considered on the evening to do with this matter was a 9.8% model, less $400,000 worth of renewal funding taken out, and that was lost. Having considered all of that, and also the results of the survey that I sent around to all elected members, and I thank you all for filling out that survey. It was very informative, and it's provided the basis for my recommendation to you this evening. I'm recommending that Council adopt a 9.8% model with the removal of a number of projects, and the projects I'm recommending removal are those projects that gain support from 8 or more elected members. Now, it might be easier to go to the printout because you'll be able to read the fine print a bit easier. I thought it just opportune just to show the results of that survey so that you are aware of the data. And I'm just going to mention those results that receive support greater than 8 or 8 and above. So when we look at operating, you'll notice that the first one there is to be removed is the RAP, $28,000. The FOI management software, 15. Heritage reference group projects, 22,000. The Basil growth pruning, 21,000. Kenzie Gardens Reserve trash rack and beautification for 12,000. Understory soil improvements and irrigation surrounding the Girl Guides Hall and Phillips Reserve, Leabrook, 21,000. And the last one there is the beautification of the Penfold and Kenzie Road roundabout, 25,000. Going to the next page, where we're looking at the new capital, you'll notice there's 4 items there that gained 8 votes or above for removal. The first was the Belliet Reserve Master Plan Implementation Stage 3 for 172,000. The Strategic Governance and Government Funding Assistance, 90K. The Hewer Avenue Reserve Edible Pocket Garden Construction, 38,000, garnered 10 votes. And new interpretive signs for $11,000, garnered 10 votes. If we go to the next page, the Capital Renewal Program, there was two items that received overwhelming support of 10 votes each. The Will Watkins Mine Conservation and Stabilisation Works of $20,000, and the Kenzie Gardens Reserve Trash Rack, or the capital component of the Kenzie Gardens Reserve Trash Rack rehabilitation of 19K. Then on the last page for your information are the projects that came forward from last council meeting, which were council member proposed for removal. And after the results were summarised, 12 votes deemed to remove the $100,000 towards public art. The garage sale trail of 3,300 was deemed to be removable. Your neighbourhood budget for 39,000 with 9 votes. The bus shelter renewal replacement, 47,000. Playground renewal and replacement, 190,000. And the 400,000 reduction in asset renewal. Just noting that in the commentary with the playgrounds and the bus shelter coming out, they will be deemed to be included in the $400,000 allocation. Now, when you take that suite of projects and put together the model around the 9.8% less the cuts, if I can draw your attention to the second column from the right, which is entitled 9.8% plus cuts recommended, I've actually summarised what impact the removal of those projects would have from the budget. Now you'll note the first year rate rise is 9.8, the second year is 6.75%, and the third year is 4. Those percentages haven't changed from the initial recommendation, that was the 3.8, even with the projects in. Because what we're trying to achieve here is driving those savings through, driving those savings through to the bottom line. If you go down to the next part of that column, you'll note the particular dollar amounts for the savings that have been realised from those suite of projects that I'm looking to recommend that council remove. So recurrent expenditure, 42,000. Operating projects, 145,000. So just to kind of explain what that means, recurrent is projects that we've removed that will get the benefit on year for the next umpteen years going forward. Operating projects are one-off projects that impact on our operating bottom line, but we only get the benefit for 1 year. The capital renewal and the capital new, as that says, that's capital projects, and they're funded by borrowings. So the removal of 439,000 and 411,000 positively impacts our level of borrowings and provides us with a gain in terms of reducing our borrowings over time. It's interesting to note the operating result that flows through. So originally with the 9.8% model, we were looking at a deficit of 1.47 million. With these changes, the deficit reduces slightly to 1.27 million. We're still looking at coming back into surplus in the third year. Where the larger gains are made is when we look at the outstanding debt after a 5-year period. It goes from 29.9 million down to 28.3 million. And the interest expense, we make savings there. It goes from 4.8 million, to 4.64 million. There is no change to the average rates. So if you come across to the next page, in summary, my recommendation to you is looking at a 9.8% rise, remove those projects that have the support of 8 council members or greater, and I'll pick that number because largely that means you have majority support. They have majority support, Review the services during the current financial year and review our asset intervention levels during the coming financial year. And I must admit, there's a page missing from my... I had a page included, that summarised what those changes are. So there's 3 key changes here. The operating result improves by $200,000. There's no slide for this. I'm just saying it up from memory. The operating result improves by $200,000. Our borrowings reduce by $1.6 million over 5 years, and there is $160,000 in interest savings over that period. The key benefit here, though, apart from that savings compared to the original model, is when you look at the second year rate rise. In that, if we look at that sits and stays at 6.75% and doesn't increase, and if we particularly can compare that to the proposal we had before us at 8.95, which indicated an 8% rise, I believe the community would have an issue with that if we went out next year and tried to ask for 8%. I think it's prudent for us to try and achieve a result that is at least maintaining what we went to the community with as part of our community consultation around the 9.8. And just some final considerations. to leave with you as part of your deliberations. As I said just a second ago, the second year rate rise that we went to the community with talked about a range between 4 and 7%. 6.75 was the figure in the budget documents. I think anything greater than that, the community would struggle with. Even at 9.8, we need to be conscious that it's still a tight budget, and I think we will still have limited ability to respond to budget pressures during the year. So I would strongly discourage movement lower than 9.8. We know that there's a current study being undertaken about local government sustainability, and that's largely around other spheres of government pushing costs onto local government. We know those pressures exist. The solution to that won't be quick. We hope it is, but we know that pressure's in the ether. The other thing we don't know is even once we review our services and our intervention levels, we still don't know whether the community is going to support reductions. So we can't bank on those until we've done that body of work and understand where the community is sitting with that. And as a last point, we really do need to adopt a budget by 30th of June. Whilst the Act talks about 15th of August, if you work backwards from when the first rates instalments are due and looking at the statutory timelines there, we need to treat this 30th of June as our backstop to get a budget together so that my team can then do all the necessary work to raise set the rates for our rate notices to go out. So with that, Madam Mayor, I'll now open up if anyone's any questions they'd like to ask me.
Yes, please. Yes, it is. Councillor Jennings? We'll use your microphone so people at home can hear, but it's just I'm just not deferring the pressing the button.
Thank you, Mayor. I must say this week my phone has been running hot with ratepayers who have discovered that the rates could have been double digits, and it's almost 4 times the amount of phone numbers saying thank you for keeping the rates at a single digit. So I think as a chamber we made the right decision, and we have to continue to move forward. So I'm looking forward. So you got a
question, Councillor Jennings?
No,
because that's really what you're talking about that's actually when we get to the debate.
All right.
So I think it's questions that you have about what's been presented to you, or questions that you have before we launch into motions and debating the motions. So go ahead if you have a question, otherwise, okay. Councillor Hallett.
Question is to the CEO. You mentioned about a bank of work.
Excuse me, Councillor Turnbull, I heard that and that's not appropriate. Right. Continue, sorry, Councillor Hallett.
The CEO talked about a bank of work to do with the community, I assume engaging with them on whether there's supports for the cuts or not. And I'm just wondering, do we have to do that because they've told us they want us to cut? Do we have to go back to further engage with them, or is that our responsibility to just decide what gets cut?
Good question. I think there's 2 ways, and I'm assuming you're talking about both components, the intervention levels and the services or the service levels.
I was with your point, community may not support services or intervention.
Oh, right. Yeah, certainly. There's 2 ways you could approach this. One is councillors could unilaterally, once they receive the data from administration, decide which services they felt the community would be understanding if they removed. That's probably not, in this case, a prudent approach in the broadest concept. context. Because what could happen is the council could decide to cut a service and then find out that the majority of the community, in fact, don't want it cut, and then you're faced with a backlash and revisiting that. There may be some lower level services that council says, do you know what, we think it's a safe option to remove and we can do some of that. But, for example, if you were going to look at reviewing the library, we know that's a loved service offering by a community. I'd certainly encourage council to canvass the community broadly on that one, for example. So when you're looking at the intervention levels, that's not quite so clear cut. Obviously, we've gone out to the community as part of determining our asset management plans. So on one level, we have already gone to the community. And what they've come back to us largely and said is, we're happy with what you're doing. But in the cold light of day, it depends how you phrase that question. So, for example, if you said to the community, are you happy if we cut back and it saves you X? That may garner a different response. But again, I still believe it's a conversation you should have with your community, because on one level, I firmly believe a lot of our community enjoy the service and the standard that we provide. If we were to adjust that, you may end up with large portions of the community who are questioning council's decision. Yeah, that was a very long way of answering a question, but hopefully I covered it.
Councillor Davey, please use your microphone so people at home can...
Thank you, Mayor. In terms of, and thank you for that clarification, but in terms of reviewing the service provision, from my experience on previous councils, that's taken a fair amount of time. Could you please, because we need to go through and evaluate them all, evaluate the costs and benefits and what our community expects. Could you give us a rough outline, please, of how long that would take?
To do it properly, it probably will take the majority of the year. We have to be careful, and there's been some experiences shared with the audit committee where I think in the past this council reviewed its services and it cost a six-figure sum to do that. And then on review of that analysis of that review that was put forward, no services were cut or amended. So you'd argue that perhaps wasn't the best spend. What I'm proposing as part of this motion is that we start with a very basic exercise of simply gathering the core data to, one, enable council to have a very clear picture of their services, what the resources that are utilised to provide those, and then determine how we go forward once we've got that data. So I'm looking to do as cost-effective process as I can initially, and then I think it's up to the council, with the administration to determine how much you want to spend and how deep you want to go into the process.
Councillor Cornish, you're next.
Thank you, Worship. Just wondering why you picked 8 as the number instead of 7, being 7 is the majority in the chamber.
No, certainly. The logic I chose was that I wanted to get a suite of projects that had the best opportunity of being adopted by the majority. 7, given that there was 13 people consulted as part of this, or council members consulted as part of this, it meant that the 7th arbitrarily would require the casting vote of the mayor. So I erred on the side of caution and went to 8.
I think it's about 2/3 majority, isn't it, too? About the 8 out of 13? Rather than the 7. It's close to 2/3 majority. Yeah. Councillor Henschke.
Thank you, Mayor. Did everyone vote on everything?
I can say everyone completed a survey and answered each question, but obviously the machinations of each that each council member chose to remove was unique.
Any other questions? Councillor Dawes? And then Councillor Turnbull? Councillor Turnbull.
Yeah, sorry. My question is, do we need more time to read and digest this? 269-page agenda at 2 p.m. for a 6 p.m. meeting. Can we give it our full justice?
Through Madam Mayor, I think to be fair, Council had ostensibly this agenda before them last week. The only thing that's changed from the last Council meeting essentially is the recommendation that's before you. And again, the only difference from the recommendation that was in the original paper is the suite of projects that I'm now asked you to consider removing. So essentially, the two pieces of information, also the key piece of information to digest are those projects that were the result of the survey. So I would strongly recommend that Council considers the budget this evening.
Councillor Wilkins, can you just turn your mic? Sorry, can you just turn your mic off, because I've been writing people down as they've indicated. So the next person is Councillor Dawes, and then it's you, Councillor Wilkins.
No, I didn't have my hand.
Oh, you didn't? Okay, sorry. Now it is Councillor Wilkins then.
Thank you. Through you to the CEO. Is it possible that we could actually still remove basal growth from the base of trees when the arboricultural people and the horticultural people are out there doing the normal course of service that they should be giving the community? That's what I think. We don't need 21,000, for God's sakes. Even I voted against it.
Yeah, certainly, Madam Mayor. Mr Camp will talk to the team and ensure that as they're going about their normal maintenance of our trees that it's on their list. So I think I agree with you. I don't think we need the 21,000.
Councillor Jones.
Look, I agree with Councillor Turnbull, I have to say. Here's my question. Misconduct. Councillors must perform and discharge their official functions and duties with reasonable care and diligence at all times. I haven't read this agenda paper. The obvious reason it was sent at 2 o'clock and I'm at work. So you're asking me to vote on something I haven't read. Am I going to be called up before the Office of Public Integrity?
As I mentioned earlier, you have all had this information last week.
Yep.
And I can only assume that you digested it last week. The only new information that's before you is the information that I took the time to walk you through, and I assume that you all listened.
Well, I don't know because I haven't read it.
This is identical, and you were told it was going to be a copy of what you got at the last council meeting.
When did you tell me that? I was asking this morning when we were going to see an agenda that we should have been provided with on Saturday or Friday or whenever the meeting was called.
Through Madam Mayor, we've certainly complied with the relevant portions of the Act, and I'm cognisant of giving councillors information in very short spaces of time. But at all points along this continuum from the last council meeting to now, people have been aware there has been a special meeting called. You've been aware that we were developing the data, and we provided the information to you as soon as was humanly possible. And I've also taken the opportunity to go through it in detail in this session so that councillors do have an opportunity to grasp the detail prior to making a decision. Thank you.
Can you turn your microphone off, please, Councillor Jones? Now, Councillor Wilkins.
Further question, if I may. The Kensington Gardens Reserve trash rack. Aren't trash racks actually, once again, in the normal course of service provided, when there's been a rain after the autumn period, aren't they automatically reviewed, emptied, etc., etc.? I would have thought that would be part of the normal course of business.
Yeah, through Madam Mayor, the bid that is in the budget at the minute was actually looking to increase the level of service by beautification of the trash rack, some plantings around it, and actually improving the aesthetic of that trash rack. So it wasn't the operation of the trash rack, it was look at enhancing the visual impact of that trash rack.
Are there any other questions? All right, Councillor Wilkin.
Councillor? Informal. Back to my other hobby horse with the capital H, heritage. One important item from the Heritage Reference Group was the opportunity for ratepayers who are going through the assessment process for housing development, was the opportunity for 1 hour with an architect. I think that should be part of the normal course of business too, quite frankly, because it's been long overdue. People need somebody to come on site so we get a better outcome of design in that development application process. And I would strongly urge that we do consider actually offering that service through the planning department. Thank you.
Through Madam Mayor, just in response to Councillor Wilkins, what I've presented to you is a summary of your colleagues' votes. So it'll be up to the decision process shortly.
Councillor Zing.
Could I move a motion that we go back to formal session, procedural motion?
Once I've got no questions being asked, I'll automatically, and I had, this is being timed and I've asked for a 5-minute bell. So if I've got no one on my screen, then I will just call it an end to informal session and then we'll move forward. So I have got Councillor Davey with a question.
I'm happy to second that motion.
Oh, actually, do we have a formal motion in this case? No, there's no formal motion in an informal session time, so you can't call one. Councillor Dawes, you wish to ask a question or speak?
Yes, I'm just thinking of what's going to happen next. There are a number of projects here which I'll call on the cusp. They've got 7 votes, I think about 4 or 5 on the cusp. Now, when we get to the formal part, and I'm saying this not only for you, CEO, but for the finance team over there, and say we take one out and we add one in, you know, because I can sense that could happen, provided the taking in and the adding in, the taking out and adding in is the same, all right, can that happen? Because I remember I tried that last meeting, and I said you couldn't do it.
No, through you, Madam Mayor, and I'll stand corrected if I get this wrong. Mr. Spearman will correct me. As long as the rate rise number doesn't change, because the rates and the dollar are what we essentially need to adopt this evening, I believe we should be able to accommodate that. Is that a fair response?
Through the Mayor, that's correct. If we're trying to adopt the rates in the dollar, so if the rate number changes from any of the models that are in the report, then it does take a full day basically to remodel it and get those numbers. But if things are the same in, same out, that's great. If it's a little bit of a change, then we'll rework the numbers ASAP, just for the final overall expenditure and income.
All right, now I just wanted to check with Councillor Hallett, are you going to save your comment till later, or do you wish to be probably the last person to speak? Okay, good, then ask the question.
Question is about the trash rack, and it is a beautifying project, but it is in a dreadful state, and it's not just about prettying it up, it's also that it really stinks. Sometimes when it's banked up, it smells like a sewerage pit. And so my question is, if this project is totally canned, it looks like it is, will we step up the increasing the emptying of the rack so that we don't get water sitting there for weeks on end and stinking out the whole community, well, the whole nearby community? Thank you.
Yeah, Through Madam Mayor, I certainly wasn't aware of perhaps the environmental health issue of that one. What we'll do during the year is my team will monitor that, and if it gets to that point, obviously we'll intervene earlier than originally planned.
Councillor Jones?
If I wish to propose 14% minus a decrease for the cuts, what increase rate am I proposing?
Oh, sorry, just to clarify, so you'd be looking to propose a percentage rise of 14% less whatever the impact is of those items. Chris would have to put into his model, but I wouldn't have the rate in the dollar for that tonight. So we'd have to... I don't have the ability to calculate the rates in the dollar for adoption.
But could I put that motion and you'd know what I was proposing?
I have to take some advice. The danger is council wouldn't know the rate in the dollar that you're adopting. I might just need some governance. Just give me 2 seconds, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
No, we can't move on until this question's answered.
I just want to ask if you could repeat the question.
I'm happy with, would you like to repeat the question?
So if I want to have a rate increase, which would be 14% less the impact of the cuts, so I don't know whether it's 13 and a half, 13, 12, it kind of depends on how the operating and capital work together, because the operating cuts are not large.
So they may not be able to do this on the fly, so that's why there's a consultation happening at the moment. Yes, exactly. We are in informal, so, and you aren't interrupting the debate. I'll accept as one, Ron. Just.
You haven't done 20 government budgets.
I know.
You're in a very difficult and possibly illegal situation.
Anyway, okay, that's why we're taking advice from governance and the CEO.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for your patience, council members. Just spoken to the team. We do need the numbers in the resolution, but the team have said they'd be able to turn that calculation around in 3/4 of an hour to an hour. If council was of a mind to consider that, I would be seeking a motion along the lines that indicated that council was going to support that concept, rather than have my team go away for an hour, adjourn for an hour, then come back and find out that motion is going to get lost. So the response is that we can do it this evening. I would just need about 3/4 of an hour, and I could have those numbers, because from a governance perspective, we do need to have the rates and the dollar in that motion for it to stand up to scrutiny.
So to clarify, you could move that motion. If it is passed, then we put a hold on the suspension of the meeting for at least 45 minutes while you go away, and then we come back after 45 minutes approximately, and then we actually run another motion that has the percentage in the impact of the dollar in it.
Yeah.
Is that, I'm just trying to clarify so I'm
yeah,
clear
no,
and
so
everyone else is clear.
Just
Yeah.
a slight technicality,
Oh,
if I
okay.
may, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Their first motion couldn't say that you're adopting it.
No.
In essence, it would have to just be a motion
In principle,
or
yes.
subject to, in
Yep,
principle.
yep, yep.
To determine whether the chamber is in favour.
Right.
And then my team will work diligently, get it to turn around as quick as we can. We'll take an adjournment, then come back.
Alternatively, if it were lost, then we would move to the next motion.
Correct.
Just want to make sure everybody is clear, so before we move into formal. Now, Councillor Hallett, did you have something you wanted to say before we move back into formal session? Okay, you're done, all right. So I have no one else having their hand up, so I will now move back into formal motion. And I believe, Councillor Turnbull, you wish to move a motion?
Going to be to adjourn the meeting till we had time to digest what was here. And seeing we're going maybe having to wait for 3/4 of an hour for an answer, perhaps we could adjourn the meeting till Wednesday, 26th.
I'm sorry, but I have commitments on that date, and this was the meeting was scheduled, and this is tonight. We need to make that decision.
Or some other date.
One way or another. Is there someone else who wishes to move a motion? No? Sorry. Okay. All right. So I've just been advised that if you wish to move that motion, you can. But you didn't actually say you wanted to, you just said you were thinking about it earlier. So do you wish to move that motion now? Then move it forward.
I wish to move the motion that this meeting is adjourned until a suitable date during the week. I don't know whether there's CAP meetings or what there are, etc. Thursday, the 27th. Wednesday, the 26th.
I won't be here.
Well, let's just get a date on the books, Madam Mayor.
Okay.
Just to clarify.
Tuesday, the 25th.
We have mandatory
Instead of the
session-
meeting
mandatory
that we're
session
supposed to be having, the workshop. Any time.
If I can just assist, Madam Mayor.
Yes, by all means.
Just to clarify, I think if you are going to propose this, perhaps trying to do it prior to the mandatory training might be ideal. So are you proposing the 25th?
Meeting be adjourned to Wednesday, the 26th at
What time?
same 6:30 p.m.
I would only allow half an hour.
Give us much time to read and stuff.
That gives us 2 days.
We've had all of this to read already.
It came at 2 o'clock.
No.
The agenda is supposed to be presented when it's
There's the agenda and there is a report. Everything else in this document you received a week ago. That's okay, that's fine.
So,
If Councillor,
can I just confirm, Madam Mayor, what day are you wanting to land on? Right, there you go, Madam Mayor.
right, we have a motion on the table. I seek a seconder. Councillor Harvey has seconded the motion.
Yes.
Do you wish, either of you wish to speak?
No.
Right, so it's a formal motion, so does anyone speak against it? No. No, okay, so I will put the motion. Those in favour of the adjournment? Those against? What have we got? Motion is lost, so we are not adjourning the meeting tonight. Now I will accept any other formal motion that is presented. Councillor Hallett.
I move the motion as written in our report, which is essentially the...
On page 3, bottom of page 3. That council receives and notes the report,
Yep.
which is the
And
recommendation.
over the page.
And you don't need to read all of that because that's already out there for public knowledge. And I seek a seconder. Councillor Davey, are you seconding? Councillor Howard, you turn yours off, that's right.
Thank you. I'm happy to second the motion, and I reserve my right to
Right.
speak. Thank you.
Is there anyone else, anyone who wishes to speak, please use your microphone, press your button if you wish to speak, either for or against. Councillor Jones.
Look, I'm going to speak against the motion because it's still coming up with a $1.3 million deficit, which means we're not even paying our ongoing costs. And I don't think we should be operating as a council where we're having to borrow money to cover our everyday expenses. It's just a bad way to run council, which is why I've suggested we go with the 14%, which is what actually brings us back into surplus and covers our day-to-day costs and starts to repay the debt on all the lovely things we've borrowed to spend on in the past. But I'm happy to concede that we should reduce it a bit to take into account the spending cuts that we've kind of informally voted on. Look, this 9.8 plus cuts is not dramatically different from the motion that Councillor Davey proposed last week that got defeated. So I'm voting against it, and if it's defeated, I will test Council's view on the 14% minus question mark.
Councillor Henschke.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll support this motion. The whole of the city is looking for savings. I'm interested that Councillor Jones still wants to move for a 14% rate rise. And I note that there Tregenza Oval and Penfold Park, Tregenza Oval, he may want to think about whether he still wants an art trail in there and a dog bag dispenser and a handrail, a netball post. I don't know why he wants to raise rates to 14% for these things. And as for Penfold Park, I know that's not your ward, but that's one of the projects that hasn't been cut. And there's a fitness station for $60,000. What else? Water sensitive, some sort of sign and bits and pieces. So look, we just can't continue spending.
Thank you. Councillor Dawes.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Look, I won't be supporting this motion. I've been quite clear about that. I think 9.8 was too high and 14 was too high. But there are some pluses and minuses with this. The first is the lower rate increase for year 2, which will go down to, and I've forgotten what it is. What is it? 6.75. So that is lower than the motion I put that was lost last time. But in year 3, all 3 of them are the same. They're all 4%. It's just the first 2 that we have a slight difference, just the first 2. So I will give that a plus for this 9.8%. That is a lower rate compared to the 8.95. But again, it shows that the 8.95%, even with all these cuts for 9.8, produces a lower debt than this motion before us. And that has been shown in the CEO's presentation. The other thing that worries me, and Councillor Henschke did make note of this, there are some of the cuts that I don't agree with. Most I do, and some I wish were in there, to be honest. I cannot believe some of those that only got 7. That's what I said. I think there were 4 of them on the cusp of 7, but one of those 7, I'm not going to mention what it is, but it shouldn't have been included, especially when Bill Yet is completely taken out. So I won't support it for different reasons from Councillor Jones, because the overall debt is still more under this particular proposal compared to the 8.95%.
Councillor Turnbull.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. I would really like to know what Councillor Jones has in mind for that one, for 14% less the cuts, because I've done my maths again this week, And really, I conclude that we're quibbling over a really small amount of money per resident, but an amount that would collectively make a very big difference to the council budget. A statistic for me which was crucial was that 1% of the residents didn't like it. They opposed it. That means that 99% appear to accept that we need to do this. We need to increase the rate to stop the debt. If we had proceeded on with 14%, we would have eliminated deficit and have a small surplus, but we didn't. It must be remembered that Burnside Council showed restraint and compassion during the COVID years and also in the subsequent recovery period. Other councils did not, and they are now in a financially much better position. Were our residents grateful? Who knows? Here we are again, copying dissent from 1% of residents for daring to make up the monies we didn't collect during the pandemic. But our residents still want the services and amenities that they used to have. So I was considering a difference between the two models of 14% and 9.8% on a resident which currently pays $2,000 per annum. So on a 14% increase, they would have paid $5.38 per week. And I won't use the cup of coffee analogy again. A 9.8% increase is $3.76 per week. Really, it's just $1.62 per week. $1.62. And here we are debating again, and here we are also saying, what should we cut? Let's have some meetings and work out what our budget bids are. Let's cut them. That was last year. This year, let's have a meeting about our budget bids. Now we have another one. What can we cut? Next year, same scenario, I bet. And probably the year after that too. So if we compare our rates, Burnside rates, with the rates of other metropolitan councils, we're considering a residence 1.5 million, about average now. Burnside, the comparative rates are 2,443. Campbelltown, 3,731. Mitcham, 3,317. Tea Tree Gully, 4,635. So we're pretty low. We're second lowest of the metropolitan councils in our rates. My son in the Campbelltown council area can't believe he pays so much more than we do in Burnside and gets much less. So once again, debating again, what should we keep, what shall we not keep? I'm really a bit sick of it, actually. It's a waste of time, our time, it's a waste of the staff time, particularly valuable time, doing this again. Here we are again and again and again. Let's just bite the bullet, and if we can't have 14%, I think we should actually sell something and get some money that way. I don't know, this is going on and on, over and over. 9.8 versus 14 was pathetic, really. And as for the results of the monkey survey, aptly named, it came through at 2 p.m, no discussion, no one's had time to consider it, discuss it, or plead a case for anything. It's really not being very fairly done. Thank you.
Councillor Cornish. Councillor Turnbull, will you turn your microphone off, please?
Thank you, Worship. I will be supporting the motion. Democracy and compromise. It's all about all parties going away feeling like they've been ripped off. I certainly do. With this, there's a number of projects in there that I would certainly like to see funded. Some that will actually save this council some money in the long term. But hey, you've got to make some cuts, unfortunately. It's not perfect, I agree, but I also think that we do need to listen to our community, and a community on the majority, in my mind, was definitely on a 9.8%. If you sort of look, 2/3 said 9.8 and higher, and 2/3 said 9.8 or lower. So to me, it's the 9.8 is the good midpoint. And we're showing our community that we're making a few cuts along the way, and I think it's a good compromise. Well, it's a compromise. As I said, there are some items in there that I'm a bit disappointed that we're losing, but that's what compromise and democracy is about.
Councillor Zing.
Thank you, Mayor. Before I delve into the 9.8, I'd like to take the moment to reflect on our previous meeting and express my gratitude to Councillors Davey, Jennings, Harvey and Turnbull for their support of the youth officer. It is heartening to see our words translated into tangible actions as we continue to uphold our prior commitments to the young people of our community. At the last meeting, had I been present, I'd have likely aligned myself with Councillors Cornish and Davey in advocating for the 9.8. We've all received messages from our constituents voicing the financial difficulties they encounter. From escalating household bills to the rising cost of everyday living, it is clear that many of our residents are feeling the pressure. I am also slightly concerned by people that paint our city as all CEOs, CFOs and COOs. This assumption not only oversimplifies the reality, but also unfairly targets and alienates many of our hardworking people. The cost of living is skyrocketing, and it seems the only thing we need now is 9.8 to help us out.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Councillor Davey, you entering now? Seconding now?
I'll entering now to speak, thank you. I'll just clarify to say I support the 9.8% proposal in the recommendation of the administration, plus the assumptions included, and plus all the clarifications we've had from the CEO tonight. I've also based this on the fact that 71% of the Burnside ratepayer respondents, the cohort of 943 people in the community consultation process undertaken just a few weeks ago, supported either the 14% or 9.8% budget models. Council has unfortunately rejected the 14% increase, which I think would have been a better one-off increase, with normalised lower increases to be made in the following years. But with 4 years of zero and low rate increases, annual income has not maintained a level which provides sufficient cash to repay outstanding debts, meaning the need for additional drawdowns on our loans, unfortunately. A 9.8% increase means that debt will need to be maintained during the next 2 budget cycles till 25-26, when it is anticipated the Council can return to an annual operating surplus. Once this is achieved, loan drawdowns can cease and annual repayment of debt accumulated can commence. We EMs have informally agreed to a series of projects to be removed from consideration to enable this, the 9.8% increase. Like my colleagues, I don't agree with all of the projects. There's certainly some of mine in there that I'd like to see go through. But we have to compromise to get this budget approved to move on. We've also undertaken to systematically review council services to ensure we are operating as efficiently and effectively as possible in the City of Burnside. And we'll also review our asset intervention levels during the coming year. So I think 9.8% in the current circumstances is a reasonable rate rise to implement, and I think we need to do it tonight so that we can comply with our statutory obligations and allow the staff who have been working very hard, and I acknowledge all of the work that they have done to remodel, review all of our considerations and requests, and I think we really need to address this and approve this tonight. So hopefully you'll approve the 9.8% increase. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Councillor Wilkins.
I do wish to speak. I will support 9.8. I was never going to support 14%. I support the lesser amount, and I think we need to get on with it. June the 30th is the end of the week. So we need to adopt the rate so that residents know what they are going to be up for and can budget accordingly. I'm also, following on from Councillor Davey, would like to thank the staff for their in-depth analysis of all that has been going on and for the workshops we've had. We've listened to the community. We are keeping some things, we are dispensing with others, but I still think we can still do improvements within the services that we provide on a weekly, monthly, yearly basis and improve those things that we do. It just takes a bit more time sometimes. So yes, I will be supporting 9.8. We need a decision tonight. We cannot keep going on prevaricating. The community is listening and we need to make a decision for them. That's what we're doing.
I haven't anyone else in my window. Councillor Hubel.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think it's probably right that I, throw my opinion in the ring, having missed the last meeting. It was suggested at the last meeting, the recording I managed to catch most of, but it was proposed that, maybe Councillor Hubel and Councillor Zing might be able to break the deadlock. Although I think with Councillor Zing declaring his support for 9.8, I don't think it would have got us anywhere, because I do sit on the 14% side of the fence. Reading the room in this debate so far, it feels like 9.8 is going to get through. But I wanted to point out that comparing 9.8 to 14% would cost the average ratepayer $78 a year more, which is $1.70 a week, and that puts us into surplus. That's a $1.7 million budget turnaround. Our debt would be reduced by $2.1 million, and our interest expenditure down by $200,000. All for $1.70 a week more than what it feels like we're prepared to do right now. So if we're prepared for 9.8, I think we should be pushing a little bit further and perhaps get maybe a bit under 14. If we can compromise on 14 and take these recommended cuts and apply it to the 14% model, maybe drops it to 13 and a bit. There's compromise, but we are being responsible fiscally as much as we can be. So that's my view on things.
Anyone else wish to speak? Well, if there's no... Oh, Councillor
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I started speaking earlier and it wasn't really recorded, so I better say it now. So my phone has been ringing a lot. It hasn't been emails, it hasn't been messages, it's been people ringing me and saying, thank you, but my gosh, Councillor Hubel, this $1.70 a week, that's 24 cents a day. There is some common sense there, isn't there? But the other side of the coin is everything is going up, and as I said 6 days ago, when you've got people that have been going out for a coffee for the last 10 years with you and all of a sudden they're withdrawing, I can feel it. People are really uncomfortable, and I sometimes suck at reading between the lines, but I can read people. And at that town meeting upstairs in the Linden room, even though there was Louis Vuitton handbags just sitting on the floor, they didn't even look at them the entire time. Like that sort of wealth doesn't go unnoticed by me. And you also don't get wealthy by writing big checks. So
They could have been fake.
oh, I will finish up. I will be supporting the 9.8 because I was voted in by my community. I listened to my community, and I really like my community and where I live, and it's going to be sad that we're going to miss out on very nice things. But here we are, so thank you very much.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? If there is no one, there are still only Councillor Harvey, which doesn't wish to speak. Councillor Jones, you have already spoken. Just making sure. All right, well then, if there's no one, I will put the motion. Sorry, I go back to Councillor Hallett to speak again.
Thank you. I would too like to thank the administration for all the work that's gone into this and to steer us through and emotional at times and difficult decision making. I supported a 14% and I've listened to the arguments today and I still feel like that was a very reasonable. But this is a compromise and it does meet the Audit and Risk Committee's recommendation, and it also responds to the community feedback, and weighing up those, while it is a compromise, I do, and I recommend the 9.8% rate increase to you. The one thing that I really think we do need to keep in mind is that if we do adopt, if this gets approved, then we don't immediately start coming with new ways to spend money we haven't got. And that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour of the motion? Those against? The motion is 1. And I just want to say thank you to everybody. It was a really difficult, we've had a really difficult time over this. I really am impressed by the way that you have, all of you have compromised. I certainly, when I filled out that survey, there were some things there that you know that I was passionate about and I had to let go of. And I voted against. You know, I voted to remove them. And I think we've all had to do that. And your last message, Councillor Hallett, is yes, we've got to now stick to it and not put in more and more things that might be nice, but we can't afford.
Can we have a division, please?
A division's been, is that? Yeah, division's been called, so I'll just have those people who raise their hand again. Councillor Henschke, Cornish, Hallett.
Sorry, can we, pardon me, can we pause for a minute? We've got to go back in.
Sorry, go slower. Okay. Oh yes, because it had already gone from the screen, yeah. Okay now? Right, so can you raise your hands if you're in favour of the motion, please? Councillor Henschke, Cornish, Hallett. Councillor Jennings, Wilkins, Davey and Zing. Those against? Now keep your hand up, Councillor Jones, Hubel, Dawes, Turnbull and Harvey. So the motion was 1. All right, so thank you everyone, and thank you for coming to the special meeting. It was a difficult process, a compromise has been shown and we have listened to our community, so that's all that we can do. Thank you, and I close the meeting at 7:38.